जगन्नाथ, Sat Sri Akal. Yes, it has been long overdue. So this has always been telling me that I was in the first talk when I was there. In fact, that's the goal and kicked the ball, and I missed out what Dr. Mahapatra was listening because I worked very closely with him. And finally it took place. And a very interesting topic. The topic was chosen not by me but by Sujit. He told me to talk about the Punjabis and the Punjabi colony and the role of Punjabis in building Bhubaneswar. Somebody who moved into this place where we sit here was the Punjabi colony, or is even today. For people who still have memories, otherwise they still call it Satyanagar or something or the other, which is in. But there was a time when, like Sujit rightly said, there was only one area or one particular colony or one particular part of the city which was named after a community. We didn't have a Sindhi colony or some other particular colony in Bhubaneswar, we had a Punjabi colony. Why? Because the Punjabi colony was one of the earliest colonies which came up. I thought, maybe I would do some background research and, and come and make the talk, but I think it will be very nice if I speak just out of memory, because I came here when I was just a year old. That was a good 60 years back. I was born in Qatar, but we moved in here, and all my life I have been here. Yes, it was a Punjabi colony which was predominantly occupied by Punjabis, both the Sikhs and the Hindu Punjabis. When we talk of Punjabis, normally, what the nomenclature takes you to Punjab and all that, but yes, Punjabi is basically a language, and Sikhism is the way of life, but very closely ingrained together. The earliest settler would have been somebody who moved in maybe in the 1958s or 60s. Most of the people who were here were post-partition. I wouldn't call them refugees, but post-partition affected people. And surprisingly, Odisha was not the destination. When I used to do, I haven't done work, now I intend to do it. Nobody just came away from the border to Odisha. They just needed to walk away. Nobody even knew of it. It was one of the, what do you call it, forgotten states and all that. So most of them, it was hop, skip and jump. We came to Delhi, there weren't enough opportunities, there were lakhs and lakhs of refugees. Opportunities were very less, but they went to some other places. Eventually, the word spread that yes, that is the land of plenty. There are people like Mata, there are people like like that, who are encouraging, who want to build up a state from scratch. There is a new capital coming up. It's a land of opportunity. One by one, the trickle started. And most of it started in Qatar. Not in Bhubaneswar, because Bhubaneswar, the new capital had been formed. Like my parents came from. They came all the way from Delhi to Qatar. I was born in one small, a town house. It's still there as it is. When I go back, Delhi Sahi Rani Hut, and after a year, we moved to Bhubaneswar. Like many people. Artaman Bhai is here. Artaman Singh, poet, author, thinker, writer. His father, the late Sardar Sardul Singh. When these refugees came down, I have to use the word refugees because yes, they were seeking refuge. There were two classes of people. There were a very few handful who were educated. Very few, very few, maybe 1 or 2%. There were people who had got some lettering, I don't say they were highly educated, they were doctors, professors, or lecturers or teachers who had come down. But most of them were businessmen. From the who were toiling, some of them were very rich there. They were even sort of, you call that the Jamindars or Lambardars there. Who would give up everything, specifically the people from Multan, from Sindh, from Quetta. They left everything behind. They just walked in empty-handed and started life from scratch. Now, this exodus, right post-partition, it happened. They came here, they saw, and they conquered in their own rich way. Mostly, what had happened was there were two major projects coming up. One was the Hirakud Dam and one was the Parakut, which required immense transportation. Trucks, things had to be carted, rocks had to be carted. In Hirakud, even the mud was gone. It was even most of the dam was built with headloads. Mechanization was a thing of the past. Maybe the whole project had about 5 or 6 bulldozers, and that's all. So that time leaders of Orissa, they roped in these people. Very few people would know that, When the Hirakud Dam was being built, we knew Devji was there. He had set a deadline. He wanted to complete it, but there was no way they could have done it. So there was one entrepreneur, a small time, you can say contractor, who said that I can do it. They said, how? Well, give me a crane, I'll bring a train load of mules, kachar. I'll bring them from, there were no mules here. We didn't have a tradition. They gave him a train. He went to the, the post-partition, whatever it was. He got a truckload of mules. His name was Telaram Budharaj. The Budharaj family is right. And very few people will know that if the Hirakud Dam was completed in time, it was only due to the ingenuity of a post-partition contractor who bought around 2,000 to 3,000 mules. The problem is the mules was, they don't breed. The mule is the mutant species, they cross between a horse and a donkey. So they can't bear children. So you will bring them, there's no way you can multiply. So trainloads of mules keep on coming, and 50% of the dam was built with the earth that was gathered on the backside of the mules. Very few people, I don't know why there should be a memorial to the mules. We have statues of Visesharai and so many other people. And what he did was, after the dam project was over, he didn't just abandon them. He brought them all the way to Bhubaneswar. There is a particular plot of land where he kept them until they died. Their natural deaths. We talk of Goshalas and other things and all, and he made a lot of money. I am giving you but one example. Yes, the study and the very hardy Punjabis came here. And mind you, let me tell you, it was something very different. For a Punjabi being translocated from the Doab area, from the higher plains, suddenly you come to a place like Orissa, you don't know the language, the weather, the food habits. Basically, they were not rice eaters. Most of them were wheat eaters, but still coming here. The story of the Sikhs of Orissa will come down to Bhubaneswar and then to the Punjabi colony. In the story of sheer determination, sheer patience, sheer hard work, and I will also say sheer honesty. 90% of the Bhubaneswar you see today, half of which is being demolished from water, were all made by the Sikh contractors. All of them. You heard of Master Gentry? The Secretariat, the Assembly, the Rabindra Mandap, all the quarters, the Utkal University, were all built by prominent Sikh contractors. And one of that, you call it herd mentality, or you call it extending, a hand. What happened was, if one person came, he was successful, he called others. And they were successful, they called more. I would even say that sort of, basically, Orissa during the post-partition also was mostly agrarian economy. Very learned people, very cultured people. But yes, the spirit of enterprise and entrepreneurship was not very much there. And I would say, in one way, they took opportunity of the time. But it was also very synergetic growth. I don't think at any instance or any time there was any opposition to the Punjabi community here. From you can say the Orient or any other community. When I'm talking to Punjabi, I met many of the Siddhis also. I just tried to, why did you come? They told us. They told me that we had not come here, we had gone to Nagpur, we had gone to Punjab. The police commissioner, the district commissioner there told that you are rice eaters. The Sindhis were rice eaters, so they were not wheat eaters. If you are rice eaters, go to Bengal, go to Odisha. You know, people eat rice there. You go and do it. The story of the Marwadis and Gujaratis, without being rude, was something of sheer opportunity. It was business and business. The intention was how we go. You know, when I did the Mahanadi expedition, you know, I realized in those days, in so much difficult terrain, small places, how they reached. I would not say exploited, they took the opportunity. And they made wealth. But not the Punjabis. Yes, because of these traditions, over the years, they prospered. They prospered to great heights. You know, when I talk of the Punjabi community, many had come. Many Punjabis had come. There were no failure stories. Every story was a success story. Whoever came here, nobody went back because he was disappointed or he couldn't get a decent living. Whoever came only got more people along with them. And mind you, in those days, even to come here, you had to change train 3 times. And the Utkal Express was such a joyful thing. You had a direct train. And when even I remember in my childhood, I had to go from here to Calcutta and then go to Delhi and maybe then go to Punjab. We had to change 3 trains and it was a 4 days journey. So you see when they came here, and I talk of this one, there were 3 or 4 small villages. Maulga, Derana and all the small villages were there. And one person got land. My father was one of the early settlers. He was a small plot near the railway. Then he asked others. Today you see that the Hans family, you know, Vinachal and all these big stores, you know, and these Kanish stores and everything, all of them at one time were living cheap by outside. There were 5 brothers. If I remember the name, you know, Kaluraman, Shodanans, Lachal, then Chunila, all of them, Clarish. You know. They would all live side by side in one row. There were houses, big houses. Initially everything started as a thatched hut. Nobody came and built those houses. I heard it from my mother. I heard it from many. No, specifically I will say that a lot of credit should go to the early women who came. Initially the men came alone. When my father came for 2 years, he didn't even bring my mother. My mother was in Delhi. Things were so hard here. Eventually when they came, you can imagine.
We'll just put a fan to here. Just pause for the time.
Those were the pioneer women. Picked up from somewhere in Punjab, got here, they don't know the language, you know, and food habits, weather. Certainly the weather of Odisha was very different from what was in the northern side of the north. But how they adapted, built up families, built up very strong families, and maintained the Punjabis and the Sikhs. They were all as one, like it had happened pre-partition or even earlier days in Punjab. It was just as one community. In fact, earlier, before the Ram Mandir was made, there was no temple. All the Hindus used to go to the Gurudwara only, I remember. We didn't have a separate temple. The separate temple, you know, you can say a distinct temple made by the Marwadis or the Punjabis and the Gujaratis together was the Ram Mandir, which came up. Prior to that, it was only the Gurudwara. And that was not the first Gurudwara which you see. The first Gurudwara, Bhubaneswar, was a small Gurudwara near the railway station, built by Sardar Uttam Singh. Okay. It's still that. That was the earliest Gurudwara. While saying this, you know, at the hindsight, I would say, the Punjabis and the connection with Odisha, very few people would know that in 1503, Guru Nanak had walked all the way from Punjab to Puri with 5 of his Mandanas, you know, people, whom one of them happened to be in Odia. 500 in 1503. Guru Nanak's visit to Puri has been documented both in Oriya manuscripts and even in Punjab. Guru Nanak's visit to Puri and Odisha was the pivotal point in the spread of Jagannath culture to North India. Very few people would know that the Sikh Aarti Aarti which is sung every morning. Evening also, even in the morning at times, was something which Guru Nanak had composed standing in front of them. And as a piece of literature, I'll give you an example. Balra Sahni, Balra Sahni was a famous actor. He also happened to be a lecturer in English. For some time he would teach at Shantiniketan. He was a full-time teacher at Shantiniketan. So once he had approached Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore and told him that you have written an anthem for India, Janagan. Why don't you write an anthem for the world? So it's on record that Rabindranath Tagore told him that it has already been written. Read the Secretariat, that is the anthem for the world. Even today I will tell you, you go to the internet, find out the Secretariat. I have translated it into English, some form. There are many translations. I am a student of literature. I have studied all the poetry, metaphysical, the epic, romantic, everything. But I don't think there is a richer piece of literature ever written. The Secretariat, I think, is one of the richest pieces of literature. After Guru Nanak came, there was a steady stream of people called the Nanak Pandit, who would regularly come from Punjab. They would come the year long, they would come for the Yath Yatra. They would come all the way from Peshawar and Lahore also, and all this is documented. In 2014, I went to Kolkata. I took a Bulla cart and I walked all the way to Puri, documenting the history as it was on the old Jagannath side. We discovered 2 old ship shrines on the way, which had either not been discovered. And this steady stream of pilgrims who would come from Punjab were essential for spreading the cult of Jagannath in northern India. Had Guru Nanak not come, I don't say Jagannath would not have been popular, but to the extent, that even post-partition till 1955, people would still come from Lahore, even after partition to Puri, stay there for a month. There were 3 months, the Mangu Mutt, the Punjabi Mutt and the Bauli Mutt. There were 3 Sikh months. Whoever used to come used to stay there. Unfortunately, during the last regime, they, in spite of all the protests, broke 2 months. The Punjabi Mutt and the Mangu Mutt. The Mangu Mutt, where the Aarti was composed, was raised to the ground in the name of purification. Only the Bauli Mutt remained. So the Punjabi connection with Odisha, there is a outskirts of it, there is a Dakun Sahib Gurdwara. There is a Sangat Gurdwara in Bhadrak, which all have evidential history of Guru Nanak having visited that place. The village is named Sangat. Sangat is a Punjabi word. In fact, when we did our research, we even found land records dating 350 years old, which in Jashpur, in Kendrapada, show that this land belongs to the Sikh community or the Nanak Panthis. In fact, in Bhubaneswar there was a tradition of something called Nanak Tamasha, which has to a certain thing become extinct, but we are trying to revive it. This is the connection. Yes, we'll come back. I waver off, because memory is something which makes me jump. So when we walked that 25 days from Kolkata to Puri, we walked. We didn't sit in the Bulla cart. In the Bulla cart, we took the 3 gods and we tried to retrace the past. We realized it's not that only Guru Nanak came. I think every sampradaya, Kabir came, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, Ramanujan came, MR came, anybody, any sect worth his name. There were 186 mutts in Puri at one given time. There were never so many mutts in Prayag or Varanasi. Never. Whoever came to Puri left his mark there in the way of the mutts were practically a message like, we have followed this. But the Sikh connection was very, very important, something which has not been explored, which has not been really studied. So we proposed to the government to open 2 chairs. In the Utkal University, we opened a Guru Nanak chair, and the Punjab University, we opened a Jagannath chair. So that the empirical study done. Like how governments work, that is still, just still thinking on. Yes, then the Sikhs came, the Punjabis came, they built up the city. They built up the city from scratch. Very few people will realize that some of the areas were no-go area. I know of the accounts of our elders who say they have seen elephants and tigers where we stayed in Satyanagar. When we were very small, jackals and foxes and all howling was there than even 15 years ago we used to hear that. I still remember the scene. That was a railway line and there was a very big slum here. There was a lot of drunkenness. So somebody in the other will commit suicide. He'll cut himself on the railway track. The police would come. They would light those petromax lamp and sit there the whole night. Only if they won't sit, the jackal would have eaten even the dead bodies. I remember as a child, they would put up 5 or 6 petromax lamps and camp there on the railway line whole night until daybreak. When the police would come and take the body and bury it somewhere there only. Those were early days. So there are so many bodies buried in and around the house where we have stayed. So this particular area, it was sort of a sump. There was a natural stream running, which you can see after the little distance away from there, which used to get flooded in monsoon. I remember at times waking up in the night and we used to be neck deep in water. Our parents used to carry us to the other higher places. We have even seen that. It used to get flooded. When later on, they were taking the railway dock and other underpass and also the water used to pass around. This was one place where if you land up at 3 o'clock in the night, the rickshaw pullers wouldn't come here. They would wait Sakara Hill back. They were afraid to come in the night because yes, there were wild animals and there were many stories also that they would not come. So many a time when we would come, that was even as early last 25 years ago also, when the rickshaws were flying. The rickshaw pullers wouldn't come here in the dead of the night. If you came to the railway station, you had to wait. So the resilience of these people, yes, how they built up the town in every way. They prospered because opportunity was there, and the Punjabis, they grab opportunity not only in Odisha, not only in Bhubaneswar, the world over. You talk of Canada, New Zealand, Australia, America, England, wherever they went, if there was a opportunity, the Punjabis would never let it go. They never let it go here also. Even today, all the private business, be it hotel, be it petrol pump, be it big distributorship, be it showrooms, they are the ones who, when the opportunity was, they grabbed it. And I would certainly say you can only prosper and increase your business if you work with honesty. And they did it. I remember the whole colony, there were families who used to keep buffaloes. It was just like the rural Punjab village. I still remember the lady would be churning the buffalo. You could go with a jug for getting the lassi over the time. You would just give it away. But another big part of it, I would say, why the success was how they successfully ingrained them with the local community. All my childhood, we had a very big joint family staying in front of us. My entire childhood, half the time I used to spend in their house. It was a typical Odia village. They had that thinking, they had that, opinion. I remember, every night during the Sanjo, I used to sing. All that Rojo and Kudu are part of our festivals. That sort of engagement, that sort of thing is something which today in today's world, especially the young people, I find it very much. Ashok Bhai is here. My father's best friend was his father. And they were both apart. His father was a very senior, he was the secretary of the Odisha Legislative Assembly. But they would sit and talk for hours, family, this sort of bonds were there. Bond which was nurtured, which to some extent continued, but didn't. But yes, talking of Punjabi colony and his father, I still remember the late Sardool Singh, the pillar of the community. He was the president of the Gurudwara also, one of the original person who was affected by the partition. Thousands of stories. I still remember. I was a young boy. He has told me stories maybe which he hasn't told to his own son. He told me how, when they were fleeing Pakistan with their families, how they were attacked. And he himself threw his sister inside the well to save her. They themselves cut off the head of their own daughters and sisters in a politically disorder. That was partition. People who have faced that, the horrors and trauma of partition far exceed what happened in Auschwitz, what Hitler did, or what the Japanese did in China. Some of the most horrific period of those few months, how they faced. That's history. It has happened. It will happen again. But the biggest thing I tell you, be it the Punjabis of Bhubaneswar, be it the Punjabis of Delhi or anywhere, we have those groups with the Biradari. I have a few members here. So most of these youngsters, they start posting against the Muslims, Modi and Anand and all that. So there's always a sort of, there are two schools of thought. So one of the senior people came and told me, it's so ironical. We faced it. We saw it in front of our eyes. We saw trains being butchered. We came over. We rebuilt our life. We forget. We forgot. Had the Sikhs remembered that trauma, had the Punjabis remembered that trauma, you could never set up the right way. It was something I told you. His father told me himself how he pushed his own sister inside the well just to save her honor. So many stories I heard from my father. Even though my father was not exactly affected by the partition, they were living in the border town called School. But they had to evict him. Lakhs and lakhs of people, you can't even imagine. Thousands affected. More than 2 lakh women raped. Still forward. They still went ahead and became stronger. Today, wherever you go, they call them the Punjabis, they call them the Punjabi Brigade, be it Delhi, be it any city. It was the sheer resilience. Yes, there was a plot. This whole prosperous community went house to house in the Sikhs or Punjabis. The Indira Gandhi, post-Indira Gandhi riots were one big plot. If I remember correctly, I have seen it. We know what happened all over the country, but our city was safe. There were no anti-Sikh riots here. Of course, there was parading, maybe one or two. But that fear, that sense of insecurity hit them. Nearly 80% of the families of the Punjabi left. They left Bhubaneswar, they went back to Punjab. Something which had not happened, maybe by that time it was 50 years. They had built our life here. Some of them had been born here, some of them had grown up. Some of them even, ingrained themselves so deeply they had married locals. They had got their daughters married to locals. But that few days of what happened in the country shook up the Punjabis of Punjabi colony, shook up the Punjabis of Odisha and a lot of places in India also. So there was practically an exodus. And one of the other things was most of the Punjabis who were here had married them. Even now what is happening when they make a lot of money abroad, they come and buy houses and land in cities. That time they were making a lot of money here and they were buying it land. Things in the colonies like Mohali are not developed, but the land prices went up. They have something to fall back on. And for the first time I saw, and I felt it very closely, there was not a sharp divide, but there was one crack among the Punjabis and the Sikhs. That was the first time something was unfolded. My father was a member of the committee. He was not a member of the institute. He was a founder of the Bhubaneswar school also. I don't say that he was affected. But yes, एक दरार जिसको बोलते हैं for the first time, that was a political reason which obviously we underwent and we overwent. But that happened. Gradually all the houses near me, which were all occupied by Sikhs, one by one. In fact, they offered it to us, you buy it. We didn't. My father said, don't sell it, don't sell. You will come back. It has happened in so many places we have seen it. But nobody came back. The houses were sold. The houses were broken. All of them are apartments. The whole cabinet, the whole atmosphere, the whole the vernacular ecology, the Punjabi ecology of the whole colony went down. And then what happened? There was this Hans family, I told you, all the 7 brothers used to live there. They prospered, when they prospered, the younger generation were not like their old houses. There was no room also, having expanded, they moved out. But still, none of them sold the houses. They are still there in the road, but they are moved out. And in one way, I would even say that the government and the people acknowledge their, contribution of their own. They were businessmen, they were not here doing charity, but I would not say that the Punjabis of Bhubaneswar, they were not, there was gratitude was shown to them. I remember my father telling me, when they had problems, they would go to Mata, all over the weather. And my father told me, Mata told them that even I am a Punjabi. Very few people could know Mata's ancestors was in Anakpanthis. 400 years ago, they emigrated. They came here. They have a village in Punjab. I did research and found it out. People very Punjabi. When it was written, I told Bakul, yes, it's a fact. And it's written in his autobiography. So basically, what I say is there are, everywhere. We call this diverse country. I have seen. I was in that modern border, in Indo-Burma border. I found a Gurdwara there. And so very funny. Wherever I went. In the northeast, surprisingly, there's only one Sikh family. And they were Gurdwara. And you know what the first thing when the Sikhs got together, they did make a Gurdwara. Even when there were 6 families, they made a Gurdwara. I have found one of the oldest Gurdwaras in Jaipur. Which was formed in 1888. There was a contractor whom the Raja had called to make the palace. Like always, he got from more Sikhs. The first thing they did was make a Gurdwara, and the Raja gave them land. In Sundargarh, there was a person who was a Sikh person who was given the job of cutting the forest for making sleepers, railway sleepers. Nobody would go there. Whoever went, the tiger would eat him up or anything to him. He had the guts. He got 10 families. He made a Gurdwara. The Gurdwara at Darpur is the second oldest Gurdwara. The Sikh history of Odisha, speaking correctly, will be a very interesting history. The Sikh connection with the Jagannath temple, not been written rightly, the two manuscripts, the two founding manuscripts, if we really delve into it, much more will come out. But sadly, today's generation of the Punjabis, the young Punjabis, very prosperous Punjabis, when this Bangku was being broken at Puri, and the Punjabi Math was being broken in the name of the British, I protested. I protested as a historian, or maybe as someone interested in heritage. I asked the government not to do it. I asked the Sikhs, when to rise the world, this is something my government can come. How can the announcement be broken? If they did some initial this thing, and we went, we petitioned to the government, we told Punjab, your mother is a Punjabi. You see this Gurdwara, how did you do it? You couldn't do it. You can't break a 400 years, 500 years old structure. Then it's the question of the power and the powerless. I really found out that they were more interested in their businesses than savings. The Gurdwaras were both broken. They were raised to the ground. People just cultural themselves and everybody managed to save them. They just do broken. I would really, think that we have to look past, we have to go. It was not easy days, my father tells me. That time even a cycle was a luxury. I remember we had the first refrigerator. And at least 20 houses used to come and borrow. My father had the first car in the whole day. I think about 50 days a year, we would be woken up at 2 o'clock to carry somebody to the hospital. 3 children were born in the car on the way to the hospital. So many people died. That was the spirit. We could knock on anybody's door. I remember anybody used to die. Those early days, there used to be at least 400 people wearing white in the. His father and my father were the first persons to be at the Satyanagar. It was such collective moment. Today, we have to ask people. People come, stay for 10 minutes and go. हर जना की धूप में शरीक था. Marriages were a big occasion. The Gurukulam and the Guru, this thing was a collective. Everybody used to come. It used to be a 2 days. We used to have Prabhat Fairies and everybody used to, wish together. Things will change. I don't say, you can really stick to the past and do it, but there are certain basic things. If we lose them, we lose certain values, we lose certain bonds, we lose certain very positive, things. This happened. Devashish is here, my friend, you know. Yes, we look at Bhaichara, Bhaichara. That is also a lying thing, but still, that it is still maintained, you know. Devu has so many stories about Bhubaneswar in the 30s and old, you know. It's dying in degrees. But I don't think, you know, in today's scenario, there is much to look ahead. The future is great. If we get strength from the past. We get strength from the success stories, you know. We get strength from what our parents ordained. How they, and these are success stories. Something which you can get a lot of strength from. But the younger generation today, quite a few of them are here also. We have to value them. The Punjabis of Satyanagar and Punjabi colony, we can but be an example. I go to Sambalpur as a contractors colony there. Interesting history. I went to Malagi, there's a Sindhi colony there. We sit down and talk to them. The biggest sad part is very few old people there. Very few old people, you know, who can really tell the tales. Much has not been written. We can look forward to a very beautiful book. I am sure the book will be launched. I think Sujit can do the most justice which my brother Hardaman Singh has written. This will be the first account. I told you a little bit about what his father had told me, but he will tell you his father's history, how they came there. Even the hands people, how they came here. They came from one place to another place, to Bhubaneswar, to here. It was not an easy thing. Today you can say Master Secretariat is a very success story. You know, samosa बेच के उन्होंने अपना एम्पायर बनाया. आज प्रधानमंत्री बोलते हैं पकौड़े बनाओ, उन्होंने पकौड़े ही बनाए थे. That is how they build up. And certainly I will say perseverance, patience, real hard work, and a lot of honesty. Otherwise, the program will be taken. Few of these, they give you small. There's so many memories, hundreds of memories when I look back, which I can say. I was sitting with Sujit just before. I just remembered before I came here. I remember those people would come to our house. We had a neighbor, Mr Anil Dhir. My father was a trucker. We had many people. People would come and say, "हम लोगों को पुराना टायर दे दें." You know, drop tire, get drop और उसे जो लोगों की ट्यूब दे दो. I know जो they used to make chappals out of it. Under that, near that level crossing, there used to be a cobbler who used to take the old tires and make slippers out of it. And all the laborers and all people used to use those slippers. A few months ago, I was traveling in the hinterland in one tribal hut. I found वो टायर की जूता बना रहा था. I purchased it and carried it. I gave him 50 rupees, but had I haggled, he would have given me 40 rupees also. You know? And this will last for 5 years. And you know what is the big point? I came and checked up in Amazon. It sells for 2,000 rupees. It is listed for 2,000. I bought it for 50. I could have bought it for that. That is the memory which fixed right. Okay. So now I'm basically giving you. I have not told you individual stories. I have ended with the couple story. I remember those people I would tire with you. And we used to give it to me. Pura time kya ho? Yes, I am open for questions. I am sure many of the things you know.
What about the story of Kala Mandir? We heard that Kala Mandir has initially based achar बेच के उनका ये
बहुत कुछ किया. देखो कला मंदिर, that family and that Santok Singh were educated people, and they didn't come from Punjab. Very few people, they came from Burma. They were the Burma emigrants. They came from Burma. They were educated. There was a big gap. So they you know, yes, they did it. People sold chappals on the street and everything was done. Nothing was sacrosanct. They were not ashamed. They were not ashamed.
We heard lot many stories like Venos people they how milking करके उनका ये शुरू किया था.
बिल्कुल.
और कला मंदिर का जो अचार बेच के मैंने सुना था जैसे हम प्लास्टिक
मुझे स्पेसिफिकली नहीं पता, पर ऐसा कोई रीजन नहीं है कि नहीं किया होगा. They would do anything and everything.
ଆମେ क्वेश्चन आंसर ओपन କରିବା just ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଖାଲି ଗୋଟେ ବଡ଼ ତାଳି ହେଇଯାଉ ଅନିଲ ଭାଇଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ. We talked about the role of Punjabi in the making of Bhubaneswar, and we are very thankful that we have another Punjabi. He's Punjabi Odia, who is helping more Odia, who is helping stop or resist the unmaking of Bhubaneswar. So big thanks, Anil bhai. media bandhu mane khali ote bite te nahi dile, and then we will open it to the audience for questions.
One question.
Sure.
Please elaborate little on that Aarti by Nanak. Aarti.
I wouldn't really be able to recite it.
No,
but I'll tell
you have
you.
to understand the text and how it is spreading Jagannath is.
Jagannath, the tradition says when he entered the temple, you know, Jagannath was like our Guru Nanak. He was a mendicant, you know. He's like a dusty cloth, couple of Indian happy. That बढ़िया से मंदिर में पसीले हमको सुनने मना करना. That you cannot enter the temple. So I'll tell you, Guru Nanak was the most traveled man in the world. The competition with him and even Patuka. But traditionally, if you look at the Udasin, the four Udasin, Guru Nanak traveled on all the four directions and traveled nearly 35,000 kilometers by foot. He went to Tibet, he went to Nepal. He went up to the Burma border. And the second thing is, Guru Nanak, wherever he went, he didn't stay with the Rajas or the Jamindars or he stayed with the poorest of the poor. Guru Nanak was not a preacher.
What was the name of Bhadra period?
Satyanagar. Whenever somebody, Guru Nanak was not a preacher, he was a seeker. And you can imagine when Guru Nanak came to Puri, the first time he saw the sea, he had never seen the sea. And it was the first time he saw such a gigantic structure. Please remember that the Puri temple during the 15th century was one of the tallest structure. You can still imagine when he came here and he saw both of them, he was dumbstruck.
No, we have to know about the text of the Aarti.
The text of the Aarti, he saw the priests performing the Aarti. So he composed and said that what is this nonsense you are doing? How can you do an Aarti of a person for whom the thal is the whole Bhukan, the stars and this thing are his gemstones. The wafting winds from the jungle are the incense. This is how he described it. That as a human being you cannot do it. He described it in such high tone that Guru Nanak was of the Bhakti tradition. He was formless. He didn't believe in the Akar. But when he saw Jagannath, just a hunk, he said, Kyumkar, what is it? He was perturbed. So he composed the Aarti. And he told them that you cannot worship him this way. This is just an understatement. Yes, the translation I cannot wait in, but to get the gist of it, you have to. And there was a lot of story that he was sent away, that the king went and they got him, and all that. And you should see in the Aarti, he says, he tells to Jagannath that you have no eyes, but I can feel your penetrating gaze. You have no ears, but I know you hear my every whisper. You have no arms, what is this? But I can feel your embrace. You have no legs, but I can see you walking towards me. You have no nose, I can feel the warmth of your breath. This is in the poetry how he described it. I can't really explain it in the poetic way.
Was he written inside that temple or
outside? He composed it outside, the place where the supposed Mangu Mat was, which they broke. They raised it to the ground. This is the high piece of, and what happened is Guru Nanak used to never travel the same way path. His Udasin was circular path. He used to come in one direction and go back. And all his Udasins are very perfectly recorded. But the first Udasi which he came to Puri, the return journey is not recorded. People don't know. Up till Puri it is recorded. So something, I told you, he was from the Bhakti, he never believed in form worship. But something or the other, he was stuck at Puri. Either he got what he was looking for, like the Buddha, he got enlightenment. I don't know, this is too high a thing for a small person like me to say. But after having studied it, the return journey from Puri, there is no record. Everywhere else, all his journey, he went everywhere. He has been called by many names. He used to stay in the Buddhist, he used to stay in the mosques, he used to stay everywhere. he is called Nanak Lama, Nanak Baba, Nanak Pir, Nanak Fakir, Nanak Aurya. You know, by every religion adopted him. There was no church. Had the church been there, Nanak ji would have also visited the church. The presence of the church was not so prominent. Had it been there, he would have stayed. So there was a sort of universality. And he travelled everywhere. He went to Dhaka, he went to Kamakhya, he went to, we have all those things. He went to Tibet, all the way. But I think the impact which his visit to Puri and Jagannath happened is something which was, I will not say, I cannot say Jagannath ka soul searching hua tha, Guru Nanak ka, but I would say Guru Nanak the seeker, not the preacher. When if you say Guru Nanak was a preacher, I think you are insulting him. He never went to preach, become a Sikh. He taught the ways of life, brotherhood, universality, equality, empathy. These were his words. Guru Nanak was not speaking on very high level like most of our the Hindu pantheon people. He was speaking a man of the masses, But his visit to Puri is something which both for the Sikh historians and for the people who are studying Jagannath culture and this thing, it's something which needs more to be delved into. There has been a Odia translation of the Guru Granth Sahib, in case if you don't know, somebody in Punjabi has already done it. And lot of studies, there are a lot of papers. I did a preliminary research on it. There are a lot of documents even in the Jagannath temple. Many of them got destroyed in the library, the Mohandan library, which we did. But if we really study the connection between Guru Nanak's visit, Sikhism and the spread of like that Nanak Tamasha, very simple, it is just like that Bhajanatra stories, do good, have empathy, help the poor, that is the Tamasha. And then we are reviving it, we have started, there has to be one Guru Tamasha and one Nanak Tamasha. The revival of the Nanak Tamasha, the books are there. So these are small parts of it, and I would not say that I have discovered all. I walked, we were in a hurry, we used to walk 20 kilometers a day, and then we stopped everywhere, And in one village we found a kada which Guru Nanak had given. Strange, Viranchipur, one small family of 40 families, unlettered, they can, recite the Guru. They worship, they have got a manuscript which is 300 years old. I took a sample and I parchment paper, 300 years.
But that house needs a little bit of care.
I would say, once I came back and told the Sikh community, somebody came down from Canada. बोला मैं दीवार बना दूंगा, मैं मॉडर्न गुरुद्वारा बना दूंगा. I feel it should be left as it is. Otherwise, I know what the Sikhs will do. वो पूरा एरिया ऐसी कर देंगे, पूरा मार्बल लगा देंगे, सब कुछ कर देंगे. I think they should let it remain in that old condition it has remained for the last 500 years.
Not termite, it's getting infested with termite.
No, termite ornament को तो कर देंगे, but the Sikhs think they think big.
ये वहाँ पर oldest Gurudwara in station पर is that exist?
Which one? Yes, this is a private, it's a family Gurudwara now.
It's a private. And he said second oldest Gurudwara in Sundargarh.
The first one was in Jaipur, the second was in Karpos, Sundargarh. It is still there. It's still there. Very few people will know when the Balagir royalty, when the king married the Maharani of Patiala, she came down, she told the first thing I want is the Gurudwara. So Gurudwara bana ke dena, but it is still there. I will tell you the plus point of it. In Balagir there is a Gurudwara. There are no Sikhs. There is a Gurudwara, there is no single Sikh family. Now the Sindhis are taking control, but the SGPC is giving money. All the Gurudwaras are held, everything is held. The Sindhis also go to Gurudwaras. So the Sindhi community of Balagir, I will tell you a small thing, which may be a touchy. I have traveled all over the country. Jagannath Sadak Yatra, so many yatras I have done. All over the country till today, I have not found a single abandoned Gurudwara, a single abandoned mosque, or a single abandoned church. I have found lakhs of abandoned temples. In West Bengal, every village has abandoned temples. Personally, if I am giving, there should be a ban on making new temples, revive the ones. Those terracotta temples are still there. Every village, we are building new temples. Sangya Marble, marble temple, tile temple. Look at the old temples. You will never find even that Eidgah where namaz is led twice 2 days in a year. I am not every day they sweep it. of the drive in the sweat. You can talk big about religion and all, just talking big will not help. I must have listed at least 1,000 abandoned temples in Bengal itself. Beautiful temples, एक चाला, दो चाला, तीन चाला, those domes. उसके अंदर में Sako is a Badhuri house, overgrown. Some of them are hidden. Why?
But that's the question, I mean, like, why does that happen? Why no abandoned?
For a different
आप सोमनाथ पर राम जन्मभूमि बनाइए नया मंदिर.
I think I may got so much into Nanak. I think one thing that we should also remember about Nanak is Nanak was probably the most scientific kind of seeker.
Absolutely.
So I remember 6-7 ବର୍ଷ ବୟସରେ ଅମର ଚିତ୍ରକଥାରେ ନାନକଙ୍କ ବିଷୟରେ ପଢ଼ିଲା ବେଳେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ବ୍ରାହ୍ମଣ ମାନେ ପାଣି ଦେଉଛନ୍ତି ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟଙ୍କୁ ସେତେବେଳେ ନାନକ ପାଣି ପକାଉଛନ୍ତି ପଛକୁ and when they ask କି କାହିଁ ପକାଉଛ ନା ମୁଁ ବିଲକୁ ଦେଉଛି ପାଣି. How will it grow? ଯଦି ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ ପାଖକୁ ଯିବ ବିଲ କାହିଁ ଯିବନି? But anyway, I think like Nanak over a talk itself can be a
Yes, why not? In fact, it can be a participatory talk.
Yeah.
Endless. Nanak in Odisha itself.
Yeah, exactly. So I think one thing that I noticed that you use Punjabis and Sikhs sometimes interchangeably, sometimes as being different. So sometimes you use but when you say that people left, Punjabis stayed back.
Yes.
But the Sikhs
That
left.
is the Sikh program,
So this entire the idea of the Punjabi identity and the idea of the Bengali identity and the fact that these were the two places which were actually partition. Because other places the borders were there, they became national borders instead of state borders. But these were the two places which were actually partition. And there seems to have been a major revival, at least in a global Punjabi identity cutting across Pakistan and India. I think that's a beautiful thing that I see. But one thing that I really wanted to ask is, the topic is about how Punjabis built Bhubaneswar. The topic as well has been how Punjabis built the modern India, and I think it will stick.
Yes,
That is absolutely.
fully agree with you.
But at the same time, I think, if not today, sometime we could also discuss about the different life experiences of those who were displaced from India and went to Pakistan, vis-a-vis those who were displaced from Pakistan and came to India. That in India, these people could, many of them, could play such a big role in building India. Did that happen that side? Of course, Jinnah went from this side, but the general people who were displaced.
The concept of Mohajir still exists. The acceptance of the Bengalis, the Malabaris, the Biharis and the Bengalis, Muslims who went there, they are still stigmatized, which didn't happen in India. If we really look at it, we got majority of the partition was Punjabis, the next were the Sindhis, there were Multanis, there were certain other factors and all also. And very few people think that the partition happened on purely, what you call it, on a religious basis. Many Muslims also came over. Many progressive Muslims who knew what would happen, who foresee what would happen in Pakistan. And I think they were accepted into the mainstream in a very big way. What happened to Pakistan and why this Mujahid community happened in most of the Muslims who emigrated back. There were people who were educated, they were working in the postal department, they were working in the railway, they were army people, we had a lot of army men, they went back, they occupied positions, which was not looked at well upon by the newborn. They were not looked at. They were educated, the railways and the post office had all, most of them were, at least in the higher levels, were Muslims who had gone from here. And then, ours was a very diverse country. India, even post-partition, was diverse. But for them, a Malbari Muslim, a Bihari Muslim, a Bengali Muslim, was something very different by way of language and everything. So that acceptance, so that was basically a North Indian, that Baluch and that Pathan, that culture, Punjabi culture. Acceptance there was not very easy. But we had such a big diversity, that they could, you go to Tamil Nadu, you are shocked. The way they speak Tamil and they become Tamils. They don't even identify themselves with. Some of them can't speak Punjabi. I was especially shocked. More was the place in the border. There were 30-46 families and a Gurudwara. on the border with Burma, where you can walk across and all. So that assimilation, that synergizing, it happened much more in India than in Pakistan. There was a reason also. We are already so diverse. They are not. Basically, because moti, if you look at the the upper tracts and all, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area, the rest of Punjab and Sindh and all, was one homogeneous area.
I have a few observations. Of course, many thoughts that have come into my mind. I thought, I'll just point out one thing, and it's not particularly with reference to Bhubaneswar. Having the Sikh community's connection with Odisha, particularly in the modern day context, is it's very faceted actually. See, one thing that reminds me that I recall is Kartar Singh Sarawa's.
Kartar Singh Sarawa,
Night This Kartar Singh Sarawa's early education in Cuttack. And as you all know, that Kartar Singh Sarawa is the guru of Bhagat Singh. Another thing that reminds me, because when I was going through certain memoirs of the previous governors of Odisha, you see, Bhagat Singh was tried in 1929 for that bomb case. And Asaf Ali was a young lawyer. He defended him, and then he later became the governor of Odisha. And there are many things, of course, in a different forum I can discuss. But then for the general information of the esteemed audience, Anil's father and my father were very esteemed friends. And then we had a deep connection with Bhubaneswar. My family had a deep connection with Bhubaneswar. And the first bookshop of Bhubaneswar, that is EKAMRA that was established in the Eastern Tower of Bhubaneswar, Market Lane. And later it became Gandhar. So this way, both I call them as the institutions, and both the institutions have been there, and the death of the institutions and the death of my father, the institutions have also vanished. So for the time being, this much more later.
We talk of Kartar Singh Sarawa. Most of you in the room wouldn't have heard his name. One of the youngest men we had from Cuttack, started his animation. I trace his history. I am sure it is only somebody like Ashok Bal who can do justice if he likes it.
I tell you, see, my colleague in service, he has been doing extensive research on Kartar Singh Sarawa. And hopefully by next year, that book will be out, and that book is of 500 pages in Kartar Singh Sarawa.
I went to the village, I collected the soil from that place, and from the land records I found out that the land that was given to Kartar Singh Sarawa's two uncles were forest service officials in Tekala. Okay. The land was given to them. That land has been taken over by the, what is that institute called, in Japanese, that NIS, That land has been taken over and some by the private people. I went there, I found out I have all the documents. We were threatened by the local people. But I am giving it to somebody, the land that was given to him. And the story of Sarawa has not been told. His Orissa connection has not been told. That Ravinsha Collegiate School, we are only basking in the glory of Netaji. We had another great man, a youngest man who chose to die. And he went to study from Cuttack, he went to America to study chemical engineering. He founded the Gadar party. He was one of the original. And he was the guru of Bhagat Singh, which Bhagat Singh has acknowledged. We don't know his name in Odisha. We don't know all these people, I will tell you. I have extensively worked on Netaji, on Lakshmi Panda and all. If Netaji was Netaji, if Netaji did what he did, it was only because he grew up in a place like Cuttack. He was born in that, Odia area, and his early years attributed to his teacher. All, if the foundation stone of his thinking, his philosophy, was had he gone in You know, this will trigger ruffle many people, but had he been born in Bengal, maybe he would not have that sort of a mindset which he had because he was brought up under the mother's tutelage, under restriction what he calls. So was Saraba. I am so surprised, nobody in the government doesn't know his name. I have been to Punjab and he says 500 pages about Saraba, you can write a 1500 page book. He is one of the, in the Azadi Ka Azad Mahasab mein, they gave us, unknown freedom fighters of Odisha, जिनका नाम भी नहीं मालूम है. Dr. Anant Mahapatra is here. I don't know how many names, how many sir? कितना नाम डिस्कवर कर दिया आपने? Unknown.
Odisha.
427 people who had participated in the freedom struggle whose names are not known. Dr. Mahapatra wrote of it and it has been put up in the website. And there are so many more. He will agree this is not complete. He will agree, So when we talk of a pride of place, we talk of it. The Saraba story is so nice, I don't know speak of it because nobody knows. Nobody will know if I say, and Kartar Singh Saraba's role in the Indian freedom struggle is as important as Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. And both have the Cuttack Convention. I am looking at the archives record, I can find out the land. I will even find out which his uncles were working in which department, and he was actually an orphan. They had adopted him and got him.
My friend, who is a junior serviceman of mine, he has been doing work for the last about 6-7 years. And the SCPC Amritsar has been helping him. In fact, the Kartar Singh Saraba's larger family, he has got connections with them, and I must thank him, the SCPC minister, who has been very assiduously helping my friend. And I am expecting that book to be out this year.
I know the family, they own a petrol pump near Katni, they broke down. So these are lesser known aspects. I don't say why Punjabis, there are even other communities. People who know, has anybody heard of Raoji Bhai Lakhou? He was a Gujarati who had climbed up the court hall and removed the... And there were many people post-partition who didn't want any name and fame. They didn't want a federal pension. They were prosperous. Or they didn't go for it. But we should record in history. Every year during Netaji's birth centenary, I write to the government. How many people in the INA were here? Just 2 months ago, I was in Cambodia and Thailand. I visited the death railway. The death railway, the bridge over the river Kwai. Anybody go to see it? 160,000 people were forcibly conscripted. Prisoner of war and laborers to make a death railway. 1 lakh died. And 42% of those people who died were of Indian origins. There is a death railway museum. It is written there, 42% Malays and Tamils. But do you know, 10,000 warriors were there, 6,000 died. 6,000 warriors died in making of the death railway. I have been going there twice, I will repeatedly go there. I will try to get the names. I have met the descendants. How, in what conditions they died? Does anybody know that there were 12,000 people in Netaji's INA? At least 4,000 warriors died. Does anybody know the names? The Britishers made the India Gate and put up the names of 1 lakh people, Indians who had died in the World War. Can't we have one in Odisha where we can write the names of whatever we know? So these are small things, which we have to really look at. I'll be going there again. If not 6,000, I will get 1,000 names. I will insist. वहाँ पर जो river Kwai railway station है, there are memorials. The New Zealand people have put up memorials for the people who have died. The Australians, the Canadians, the Netherlands people, Americans for the dead. I will put up a memorial for the dead warriors. It should happen. It will happen. Anybody else?
Because virtually you have discovered that place. So now, whether the followers of Nana or say Sikhism, they identify themselves as Hindu or Sikhs. And my second question is whether they were the immigrant Punjabis or the original Odia.
ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ ନାନା କାଶୁଥିଲେ ସେ ବାଟ ତାଙ୍କର ଯାହା କାମ ଥିଲା ଗାଁ ଗାଁରେ ରହୁଥିଲେ ରାତିରେ କୋଉଠି ରହିଲେ ସେ କୋଉ ଜମିଦାର ଫମିଦାର ଘରେ ରହୁନଥିଲେ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ସହର ଗାଡ଼ି ନେଇକି ଆସିଥିଲୁ ଆମକୁ ଜଣେ କହିଲା ଆଜ୍ଞା ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଗାଁ ଅଛି ସେଠି ଯାଆନ୍ତୁ ତାର 40 ଫ୍ୟାମିଲି ତାଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ ଗୁରୁଦ୍ୱାର ଅଛି ଗୁରୁଦ୍ୱାର କୁଆଡ଼େ ଆସିବ ବଢ଼ିଆ ବ୍ଲକରେ ଅଛି ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆପଣ ଯାଆନ୍ତୁ and these 40 families are different in the way they don't fight with people. They stay among themselves, they are very soft spoken, they are known to be very honest people. That our background Thilani, Amar Golu, and you were surprised. These 40 families didn't know Punjabi, couldn't read the Guru Granth Sahib, but they knew the Sikh prayer by heart. Every morning they would do the reheras. जो कड़ा प्रसाद जी बनता है, they knew the proportion. इतनी की सूजी, इतनी की घी, इतनी की चीनी. Okay, they do all the Gurpurabs. They have got 120-year-old calendars, and with great reluctance, they showed me a manuscript which is 350 years old, and they showed me a kada which they say Guru Nanak had given. They have such record, and they don't want to be disturbed. Very soft spoken. I would wish, everybody. I have been repeatedly going there. One of the senior people died. They have the Guru Granth Sahib. They can't read Punjabi. After my story was published, people came down from Canada, came down from Patiala and the university. They studied there. I don't say that is the last fight because we were walking in a hurry. But if one does a somebody told me Markona Ravi. Yeah. So wherever the Guru went, he left some indelible trace. The story I will not take long, but the doesn't sound good. Gurudwara has a very interesting story. There was a tree that was planted there. The tree was uprooted. After it was uprooted, our Mr. Parija, the Vice Chancellor, he took a sample. You can take the rings. It was correct. The tree was planted when, and the sample of the thing is lying in the Patna Sahib Gurudwara evidence hall.
Have you had any investigation about the ethnicity of the people?
I didn't couldn't. But it needs studying. A person like you can do it much better.
Yes.
It's almost a very quick question.
Very quick.
I'm not giving you the very
Quick answer. Okay.
It's like this that I had studied in Bal.
You already talked about that. Oh, really? I also studied in Bal.
This is Bali Mishra.
Yeah. This is
Bali Mishra. She was the founder. She was the founder. The husband was a naval officer, retired naval officer. She was a Punjabi. Yeah.
बहुत धन्यवाद. It is rare that the Ghanta Forever we still have a full house. So big thanks to each of you and a big thanks to Anil Bhai who is as engaging as ever.